All right, 93. Do what thou wilt should be the whole of the law. In this particular video, I want to speak on why people are superstitious. Superstition comes from, you can say, the unconscious mind or unconscious fears, which means certain things you can say will give you good luck, while other things will give you bad luck. So, whether we know it or not, or whether we realize it or not, we have these things that are carried from generation to generation, and we don't even notice these things until we actually observe. What I mean by observe, because it's not necessarily something that you really expect. It's something that really happens in the moment. For example, like sweeping your feet with a broom, it's said to give you bad luck. Or when we were kids, we heard things like stepping on cracks, from small things to very big things. So we would see, the older generations go through these superstitions, and many times we never really ask where they come from or where they came from, because honestly, I'm sure that they don't even know. It's something that they saw the older generation before them doing, and then they unconsciously picked up on it, and then we unconsciously picked up on it, and it just goes on and on and on without a particular origin because it just carried on unconsciously. So because we have very little understanding of the not the subconscious, we actually have a lot of information on the subconscious, but we don't really have a lot of information on the unconscious, especially the collective unconscious. That's why I say collective experience. It's not just something that happens in a certain part of the world or a certain part of the states. These are things that we are all familiar with no matter where you were born, because these are things that linger in the collective unconscious. And because this is not necessarily something that we're taught, it's something that we have to learn on our own. That's why it goes unnoticed. It goes unnoticed because unless you have a reason to decode these things, it's not going to come up in conversation because it goes beyond religion. It doesn't matter if you identify with the Christian faith or the Islamic faith, the Jewish faith, any of the faiths. They all have their own form of superstition, things that you should do that will increase again your luck, and things that you would do to decrease your luck. Things that you do that would be favorable, things that you would do that would be not so favorable, things that are godly, and things that are of the devil. All these things resonate within the collective unconscious. And this is why there's so little information on it, and it's only a handful of people that even ever went into depths about it. Because for you to begin to unravel the mysteries of the collective unconscious, it allows you to begin to unravel the mysteries of why we're even here in the first place, why we exist, all of these deeper questions, as we call the mysteries of the universe, or why we exist in the first place. We have to go through these superstitions to ask those deeper questions. And the reason I say that is because we are taught that it's just certain questions that shouldn't be answered, or there are certain things that we just basically shouldn't know, things that are only for God to know, things that are only for the devil to know, right? This is why the occult is so off limits or forbidden, because the main reason for you working with the occult is to comprehend things that the average person simply would not dare to explore, because there is a superstitious fear attached to it. So it's not conscious. It's not whether something is logical or reasonable. Because when you ask people why they don't acknowledge the occult, it's not going to be based on, well, it's just illogical or it's unreasonable. Most of the time, it's not that, because you can apply logic and reason to things like astrology and numerology. There are actually practical uses, but you have to acknowledge the truth of these things. Meaning, people may acknowledge things like their zodiac sign, but they are not going to fully invest in the science and the study of astrology, which is all based on mathematics. So if astrology is based in mathematics, if numerology is based in mathematics, if the tarot is based in mathematics, which is just probability and statistics, the entire occult is based in the laws of mathematics. Because the highest forms of mathematics deal with the invisible planes. Everything mathematical is not tangible. We are only taught the tangible sciences, physics, chemistry, the basic math, all the way up to calculus. But these are just forms of measurement, because once we begin to explore the metaphysical, we may go into things like astrophysicists or astrophysics, or we may go into things like astronomy. But when it goes to the realm of astrology, then things get a little spooky, because you don't get the same results every time, meaning it does not follow the scientific method. And that's also why they consider it pseudoscience, because you're not going to get the same result. See, if something follows a scientific method, you're going to get the same result every time. It doesn't matter who conducts the experiment, you're going to get the same results every time. If you mix this chemical with that chemical, this will be the result. And that's how we got to a level of what we call modern science. But even modern science is flawed, because they are bound by the scientific method, something that our ancestors, something that the ancients never considered, because they acknowledged that that will only take you so far. That will help you to understand the physicality. But that's not going to help you to understand what we're talking about now, which is the unconscious mind, or the collective unconscious, or as we call the psyche. Because that's what astrology is for. It helps us to decode the psyche. That's what the numerology is for. That's what the tarot is for. That's what the Kabbalah is for, so on and so forth. All that affects your psyche. So everything that you do magical, everything that you do when it comes to the occult, is you having an effect on your psyche. And again, this is where we find superstition. So that's why most people don't want to go into those worlds. Because when you begin to explore the mysteries of the psyche, the mysteries of the collective unconscious, meaning why are we all the same? We can easily tell the differences between each other, but we also have similarities in the psyche that makes you the same. So that's why it's so easy to focus on the differences. That's why it's so easy to say, I'm Democrat, you're Republican. I'm a part of this gang, you're a part of that gang. I'm a part of this tribe, you're a part of that tribe. It's easy to distinguish ourselves from others. But the last thing we want to do is to explore, well, what makes us all the same, irregardless, or regardless, excuse me, regardless of your tribe, regardless of your faith, regardless of your religion. What makes us similar? What makes us similar is the unconscious mind. That's why it's called the collective unconscious. This is the collective experience. So when we begin to peel back the layers of the collective experience, that's where you begin to go into the realms of the things that only God should know, or the things that only the devil should know, which is why these things are forbidden. So even though they call it pseudoscience, the same thing that they're calling pseudoscience is the same thing that's forbidden by religion. So there's no coincidence that modern science calls it pseudoscience. But before we had modern science, we had religion, and we had what is called the forbidden arts. And before it was forbidden, they aligned it with what we call the devil. So that's why a witch practicing witchcraft and sorcery and necromancy was said to be in the league with the devil. So it doesn't matter how far back you go, these things were always off limits or frowned upon. And it has been this way for quite some time. And you can say it's not really going to change anytime soon, because even amongst the spiritual communities, we still see people are very selective with the sciences that they study. And what I mean by people are very selective is rarely, if ever, do we see everyone embracing the entirety of the occult. They may embrace certain forms or certain factors of it, but you don't really see people say, I embrace it at all, because we still separate it from light and dark, as we call white magic and black magic. So even amongst the spiritual communities, we still distinguish the light side from the dark side, the same way religion distinguishes God and devil. So what I'm saying is, it still goes back to the unconscious mind, or the collective unconscious, or the psyche, because it's not going to give you the same results every time, but it gives you the same effect. So it's easy to say, I don't agree with it, I don't acknowledge it, I don't believe in it. But all that still is based on your psyche. What you choose to believe is based on the contents of your psyche. What you choose to acknowledge is based on the contents of your psyche. That's why when you go deeper into the occult, when you begin to be a practitioner of these things, so that you can have a personal experience with these things. So it goes beyond what's your zodiac sign or what's my zodiac sign, because you're looking at the entirety of the wheel. You're not just focused on your particular 30 degrees or somebody else's particular 30 degrees. You're looking at all 360 degrees. because you realize this goes way beyond just people. These are energies that you can actually tap into with your consciousness, with your psyche. So this is not just an energy that you're either this or you're that. And this is why the psyche is so little understood, because we cannot use the same methods we use with something else. Again, with chemistry, we're mixing chemicals, and chemicals have certain vibrations. But we also know most of these things, if not all of these things, are already within the human body. Everything outside of us is already within us, just in a different form. That's why you can say the body is a miniature universe. We are the universe in miniature form. So if you are the universe in miniature form, you contain all of the elements already within you, not just physically, but also metaphysically, meaning it actually extends to your psyche. It doesn't just stop at the brain, it extends towards the psyche. So, if we truly want to be masters of our universe, it's not enough to be a master of your physical plane. You must also be a master of your metaphysical plane. And your metaphysical plane contains what we call the psyche. And that's what we discover all 360 degrees of the zodiac. When we discover all of the numbers, not just your life path number or somebody else's life path number, we're looking at the entirety of the numbers. Because all of the numbers affect us. We're not just affected by one number, we are affected by all of the numbers. We're not just affected by one tarot card, we are affected by the entire tarot, all 78 dimensions of it. We're not just affected by one Sephira, we're affected by all of them. We're not just affected by one path, we're affected by all 33 paths of the Kabbalah, so on and so forth. So the psyche contains all of these worlds, and that's why the ancients made sure that they passed down these sciences to us so that we can have an understanding of not just the physical but the metaphysical, not just the conscious but the subconscious, not just the subconscious but also the unconscious, because all of these dimensions affect us. We're not just affected by physical dimensions, we're also affected by metaphysical dimensions. So, even what people call spirits, demons, angels, all of these things also exist within the psyche. So, because all of these dimensions already exist within the psyche, it would be in our best interest to not just study the psyche, but to actually experiment with the psyche. So, this is why people work with the spirits, whether positive or negative, because all of these energies are already contained within you. You don't just have angels, we also have demons. We don't just have positive, we also have negative. We don't just have 180 degrees, that's why we have 360 degrees. You can say half of those degrees are positive, the other half are negative, but they all are together. They are not separate. That's why we have a God, but we also have a devil. One cannot exist without the other. So that doesn't automatically make God positive and the devil negative, for example. It is all based on perspective. Because both of these energies really cancel each other out, so we should have no attachment to these titles anyway. There's no need to look at something as positive or negative when both of these elements are present within you, regardless of your opinion of them, regardless of your belief. It does not change the contents of your psyche. Your religion does not change the contents of your psyche. All these things do is just give us a superstition for us to push certain energies away and to be welcoming to other types of energies. So, of course, if we are religious, of course, we're going to push away the negative and welcome the positive. Of course, we're going to look for blessings. Of course, we're going to look for miracles. Of course, we're going to pray. Of course, we're going to want to stay away from sorcery and necromancy and astrology, numerology, tarot, Kabbalah. Of course, we're going to stay away from all of the things that help you to comprehend the science of the unseen. Of course, that's going to be considered off limits because the people that have mastered these sciences knew exactly who they are. Because how could they not know it? Because they are a part of the universe. If we are dimensions within the universe itself, then to learn the mysteries of the universe is to learn the mysteries of yourself. And to learn the mysteries of yourself is to learn the mysteries of the universe. And we know this because we have always heard the saying, know thyself. If you know thyself, there is nothing that you don't know. So, know thyself is not just speaking about the physical plane, it's also speaking about the metaphysical, which is what we call the occult. This is just a science to truly know exactly what is contained within your own psyche. So that luck doesn't become a matter of superstition, it becomes a matter of science. It becomes a matter of mathematics. Because the highest forms of science and math are invisible. That's why when we begin to study things like dark matter and dark energy and dark fluid, then we have all these multiple hypotheses and theses and theories. It's not just one straight line. See, the scientific method, for example, is just one straight line. You either follow it or you don't. But when it comes to the dark energy and the dark matter and the dark fluid, there are many different theories. It's not just one straight line. There are many different ways to view it, which is how things are supposed to be viewed. It's only religion that makes us view life through one lens or one dimension. But we know the reality is people are different. We're going to have different experiences. But the occult gives us something to help us to understand the similarities in our experience. That's really all the occult is for. It's to help us understand the similarities. If we all have a psyche, these are the tools in which we use to explore the psyche. And these are the ideas that we have over time collectively agreed that are true. So when it comes to astrology, the 12 signs, the 10 planets, and beyond, these are just the ideas that we have collectively agreed upon that are within us. The 33 dimensions of the Kabbalah, the 78 cards of the tarot, these are just things that we have collectively agreed that we share similarities with. So although we have our own view of these things, we also have similarities. So when we look at the attributes of Libra, we will find similarities. Of course, there will be differences, but we will also see similarities. And that's why it does not follow the scientific method, because the scientific method wants everything needs to be similar. Everything needs to produce the same result every time. But we know when it comes to astrology, you can have a room full of Libras, for example, and they're all different, but they all also have similar qualities, which is not in accordance with the scientific method. So that's why they deem it pseudoscience, is because even though you have similarities, you also have differences. So you're going to talk to all these people and they're going to all be different. But if you have a trained eye and trained ears, you're going to be able to see the similarities. See, a untrained eye, they're not going to be able to see the similarities. They're going to look at all these people as different because they all are different. So to even begin to see the similarities in the universe requires you to have a trained eye. And we train our eyes by being students of the occult. So we begin to see everyone is different, but these similarities are. You cannot ignore these things because you know these attributes. You've seen these things within yourself first. So you have seen the Libra within yourself first before you notice it outside of yourself. Because we all have Libra within us. Everyone has Libra within their chart. It may not be your sun sign, but it may be your moon sign. It may be your Mercury sign. It may be your Pluto. It may not be none of your signs. It may be one of your house cusp. But we all have those 30 degrees of Libra within our chart. So once you acknowledge the Libra within you, then you can see the similarities outside of yourself. So that's why we become scientists of self. The library or the laboratory of life starts with self. Because once you know self, once again, now you understand everything around you. Because self contains all numbers, all letters, all attributes. But then you begin to see the occult meaning behind it. So now it's not just surface level. Like, okay, this goes deeper than the physical. This also goes into the metaphysical. This also goes into the psyche. So the more we understand these things, the more we comprehend our own psyche. And the more we comprehend our own psyche, the more we can comprehend the psyches of others. And when we can comprehend the psyches of ourselves and the psyches of others, then we begin to realize, okay, there really is something to this. This isn't something that people just made up. These are DNA codes that we all contain to various degrees. It is within us all and outside of us all. Because this is just the patterns of reality. The patterns of the matrix are based on high mathematics and high science. To know the visible and to know the invisible. And when we know the visible and when we know the invisible, all superstition cease to exist because now it's no longer a mystery. Now it becomes a reality. And when the mystery becomes a reality, there is nothing you simply don't know. And this is why we're here. To know the past, the present, and the future, and the laws that govern time and space. Because once you understand the laws that govern time and space, there's nothing or nowhere you cannot go or be, as you are everywhere at all times. And with that, I bear peace. 93. Love is the law, love under will.